Of course, I would not expend such grace to the politicians of our country, but specifically the Prime Minister. As I explained in great chapter and verse last night, he wants to pretend that everything is awesome, but the reality is quite the opposite. Direct question today from Peter Dutton. It basically was along the lines of what I laid out last night, again in great detail about everything that's actually gone wrong in the past 3 years. And by that I don't mean stuff that happened 2 years ago. I'm saying today, on February the 4th, where Australians are compared to where they were on day one of Albo.
Under this weak Albanese Labor government, interest rates have increased 12 times, energy bills have risen by $1,000, living standards have collapsed, 27,000 businesses have gone insolvent, and we're in a record-breaking household recession. Will the Prime Minister now apologise for promising Australians they would be better off and admit that they can't afford another 3 years of this weak Albanese Labor government?
All right, the nature of the way the question was actually asked meant the Prime Minister had, well, a giant hole that he could jump through, and of course he said, nothing to see here. You should be skipping in the streets and thanking the great landlord of Australia.
When we came to office, real incomes were going backwards, inflation was going up, rising, had a 6 in front of it, and indeed we had people's living standards going backwards. And we had deficits, a $78 billion deficit that we inherited in the March 2022 budget.
But as we know, the Canberra bubble and those who protect the Canberra bubble, well, they want to pretend the Prime Minister's version of events that, look, it's COVID style, where we've been through the worst of it. Congratulations, everyone, you're the new version of the Anzacs because we did this together. Well, it's not going to work. Because unlike a situation like that, this one is so many more multiple fronts, and they are trying to say, look over there, while the reality of the experience people are having is very different. Put simply, in Parliament House, every MP, every senator has got 3 pay rises in this term. Every public servant has got the biggest pay rise in a decade. They live in very rarefied air, and good luck to you if you're on the gravy train, but it is as far away from the real world as you can imagine. Because in the suburbs, and it doesn't matter if we're talking about the suburbs of Perth, Dubbo, Darwin, Lonnie, or you pick it where you are, the struggle is real. And I'm going to show you this every night because I want this to be as clear as day. As the Prime Minister tries to pretend, oh, it was a burning bin fire and then we put the burning bin fire out and thanks to the hard work of Australians, we've all got through this together. There's not just light at the end of the tunnel, we're out on the other side in the open fields. The reality, in February of 2025, after this first term of this awful government, its lying must be called out. Because the reality of life under Labor is as follows. 30% of homes are in mortgage stress. 58% of low-income households are in rental stress. 12 interest rate rises have resulted in $14,400 extra in repayments for every $500,000 that you have borrowed. So double it to 28 if you've got $1 million and go from there. Those numbers, again, not from some far right-wing think tank. I've got the receipts. I can gladly send them to anyone who wishes to dispute them. 21 months, the average Australian has been in a recession, while the government barely keeps itself alive by borrowing money from China and just hurling it into the air by, among other things, hiring more public servants and giving them higher pay rises. So in the real world, it's the lowest living standards since 1959. 27,580 businesses have gone bust since Albanese was elected. 3 million people are this close to homelessness. 3.7 million go hungry every single week. Yet despite all of those problems, let's bring in another 1.3 million people to add to the ever-growing issues. And just a reminder to the Prime Minister and the people who seek to give him a free pass between now and the election because they like the arrangements as they currently are, as opposed to a government who promised to make it better being punished because they failed to do so. In fact, it got worse. There was an interesting piece of research which came out today about just how little money the average Australian has in the bank. Now, think about this. According to Finder today, 1 in 5 Australians have less than $100 in the bank. Not 500, not 1,000, 100. Now, you think about where that $100 is supposed to stretch until the next time they get a payment, either from the government via welfare, or maybe it's the 15th of the month when it comes to work. If they're casuals, maybe it's each and every week. That statistic is an indictment on the government, because it shows the reality of a society where more people are having double jobs to make ends meet, yet still 1 in 5 have less than $100 in the bank. These are the people who are frightened if something happens to the fridge. These are the people who are frightened if the head gasket in the car that they already fixed last year is going to go again. These are the people who will simply go without in order to make it through to the next day. Supposedly the people that the bloke from the Housing Commission stock would remember. But of course, he does not. He just uses those people as a prop. Those people as a prop to say, I am of this flock, but in terms of how he lives his life, he, of course, is on $600,000. Of course, the Prime Minister should be paid a significant amount of money. That is an example of the life lived. Come on. The taxpayer-funded mansion, the staff everywhere, let alone the people, as I say, every person in the parliament. The life of Upgrade Albo is a very, very long way away from the story of which he was most famous for. Good luck to him. He's done whatever he can to get to the place that he always dreamt of, that being the Lodge, but that is about as far away from the real world as possible for any Australian. And good luck having this bloke, and the little dog too, to be able to relate to the average Australian when, yes, he has been able to play the system that means he's got a bunch of investment properties. So on top of his $600,000, on top of his lifetime pension, on top of the 2 taxpayer-funded mansions, his property portfolio sends him $120,000 in rent each and every year. So good luck telling everyone that everything is awesome, because the reality in the burbs is it ain't. And it got worse under your leadership. It got worse because of your leadership.